My family has been running our coffee shop for almost a decade now. The business is going pretty well as we've become very well known around the area. As everyone else running a shop, I have my fair share of stories. Some are weird, some are awkward, but today's is surely terrifying. I'm usually the first person to head to the store. I'm responsible for opening the store, doing some cleaning, and receiving supplies very early in the morning. It's only a few hours later that the rest would join me, as clients start flocking towards our little shop. One day, as I was doing the usual at around 5 a.m., I heard the shop's door open. I knew it would not be any of the staff, as it was still a little early for them to arrive. Turning around, I saw a man coming inside. At first glance, I thought he was just mistaken or was going to ask for something else, as it's not usual for us to receive a client this early in the morning. The man was very well dressed and clean. He looked like a member of a royal family from the 1800s. The man slowly approached me, with a large smile on his face. "Hello there, can I get a coffee, please?" I thought of refusing for a moment, but the guy was just too nice about it, and frankly, getting a coffee done was an easy task, so I just took his order and asked him to take a seat, offering him a newspaper to read while waiting. The man retreated to his seat, put the newspaper on the table, and just started looking around the coffee shop. I noticed him uttering words to himself while at it. Although a little bit awkward, I simply didn't think much of it. The man suddenly leaned on the table. His fingers crossed each other, as his expression suddenly portrayed seriousness. He was looking at the chair in front of him, as he kept uttering words I couldn't decipher. Sometimes his voice was getting louder, and he even was gesturing with his hands as if he was talking to someone. Once his order was done, I slowly approached his table, offering him his coffee with a smile, and as I was leaving, the man uttered, "Sorry, where's my wife's order?" I turned, looking at the man, my eyebrow raised, while a very gentle smile was drawn on my face, confused whether the man was telling a joke. However, judging by his facial expressions, I quickly realized he was not joking about it at all. "What do you mean, sir?" I replied, waiting for an explanation. The man shifted his gaze towards the empty chair, pointing his index finger. "You did not get her order." I could notice that the man was getting more aggressive and angry. "There is no one here but us, sir," I replied. My words seemed to hit a switch inside the man's brain, as he immediately stood up and slapped the table so hard it almost collapsed. "So you are like them, huh? You also think I'm crazy," the man furiously said as he kept slapping the table. The man went completely insane, as he started kicking the tables, picking up chairs and throwing them at me, at the counter, and even punched the glass, entirely shattering it. I then realized the man was not normal. Blood was flowing like a fountain down his arm, but he simply didn't seem to care at all about it. He kept kicking the place, and at one point, he grabbed one piece of sharp glass as he started slowly approaching me, uttering the same word over and over again. "You're like them. You're like them." My survival instincts kicked in. I kicked the table toward the man, blocking his way to me, and I immediately sprinted outside of the shop, through the window he just shattered. I sprinted so quickly towards the closest police station and reported the incident. Police rushed to the place again, but once they arrived, the man was nowhere to be found. The only proof of his existence was the chaos he left behind in the store and the lake of his blood on the shop floor. The man was never found, nor did I ever know his intentions, but that was surely an incident that completely reshaped my way of seeing people. I never thought that a very usual trip to the local coffee shop would one day endanger my life, but that's unfortunately exactly what happened a few months ago. I work a little too far from where I reside, and since I don't have a personal vehicle, I find myself obliged to take public transport most of the time. For that, I have to wake up at around 4 a.m. every single morning. After getting everything ready, I head to the local coffee shop that's only a few meters away from my apartment. Luckily for me, the shop opens pretty early in the morning. However, for the most part, I find myself the only one in there at that time of the morning. Around 4 months ago, as I was having my breakfast, getting some work done before I headed to the bus station, A man, a woman, apparently married, and their little daughter walked inside the store. I immediately realized that they were not from here, as our city is a small one, where I almost know everyone by name. The thing that immediately caught my eye was the expression that held the faces of that family. The parents looked a bit anxious and a little bit too paranoid, looking everywhere inside the coffee shop, keeping their voices very low while talking to each other, and even exchanging some facial gestures between them, as if they had the language they spoke. It was a little bit uncommon to see something like this, but I didn't want to dwell too much on the subject, so I just put my head down once again and went back to doing my work. However, as the three put in an order and retreated to their seats, I couldn't help but notice something off about this family. The parents were very well dressed, and their clothes were from very well-known and quite expensive brands. However, for the little girl, it was the opposite. The little girl's dress was extremely old and very thin for the cold weather of that morning. It was pretty dirty, and the girl was trembling from the cold. My mind quickly clocked that something was wrong about the situation, especially when I started noticing that the two parents were now fixing their eyes on me, as if they were telling me to mind my own business. However, all of a sudden, a golden chance arose. The woman received a phone call, and looking at who it was, both of the parents rushed outside, nervousness and fear drawn on their faces. I quickly got off my seat and approached the little girl. I tried to appear as friendly as I could, drawing a warm smile on my face. I asked, "Hello, cutie, how are you doing?" The girl didn't reply. She kept completely quiet, but tears started streaming down her face. Now that I was closer to her, I could notice severe bruises all over her legs and arms. Some of them were poorly covered with bandages, and some were pretty new, even bleeding still. I realized this could be serious, so I called the barista who was like me, another girl who was working on her own at that time. I explained the situation, but through the glass of the shop, I could see the couple going back inside. I asked the barista to tell them the little girl had to go to the toilet and tried to win me some time as I reported everything to the authorities. I went inside the toilet with the little girl, locked it behind us, and started dialing 911. However, only a few minutes later and without any warning at all, the door was kicked down. Paralyzed by my fear, and without even realizing what happened, I found myself pinned against the wall. The man from before wrapped his huge arms around my neck and pressed so hard I tried to scream, but I simply couldn't, as I was even struggling to get air into my lungs. During that, the woman held my legs to each other, making futile attempts of me kicking the guy or trying to make any noise inside the bathroom. The way they were doing it, the duo surely were pros. It was only a few seconds for me to black out. I woke up later to find myself tied, my mouth covered in tape, and thrown on the floor. I had to push myself with my feet to make it out of the shop. As I was doing so, I saw the barista lying on the ground unconscious. However, I realized the two locked the coffee shop behind us, so in that situation, I couldn't get outside. However, luckily, a passerby noticed us inside the shop and came to our rescue. We reported everything to the cops, who arrived a few minutes later, and during the investigations, I was given a lot of pictures of little girls that were recently kidnapped. Among them, the little girl I saw that day in that coffee shop. To this day, the investigations are still ongoing, and the girl is still to be found. I travel around the country very frequently as part of my job and find myself eating here and there pretty frequently. Other than a few poor meals, nothing was too serious, except for one incident that I can still recall. It was Monday morning, and I had just arrived in another state that was thousands of miles away. I was extremely tired, yet a little bit late for my meeting, so the option of taking some rest and a nice breakfast in the airport was out of the scope. I just decided to leave immediately and get something to eat from a coffee shop that's not too far away from the conference center. I arrived at the coffee shop, and to my surprise, there were only a few people inside, so I didn't have to worry too much about losing more time waiting. I gave the barista my order and sat down, relaxing my muscles a little bit, taking out my cell phone, and preparing my speech that was programmed only a few minutes later. However, as I was doing so, I was still throwing a look at the barista now and then, checking the status of my order, and at one point I noticed her adding some powder to my drink. I'm pretty sure it wasn't sugar nor vanilla powder, as I asked many times to get nothing but black coffee, nothing added. It was a little odd, but I just decided to ask her about it when she gave me my order, and so I did. "Just to make sure, you didn't add any sugar to my drink, right?" To which she quickly replied, "I didn't add any, don't worry about that." Her face portrayed a huge smile as she was offering me the drink. "Because I saw you add something like a powder to the drink, what was that?" The barista started stuttering as she avoided eye contact with me. "I didn't add anything at all." I sensed something was off about the barista, but decided not to elevate the situation. "Oh, I see. Thank you for your service." I got up from my place, took my order with me, and started approaching the door. But suddenly the girl's behavior completely changed. She chased me, smacking the door against my face. "You can't leave. You have to drink your coffee here, sir," she said. "John, Jamie, come here for a second," she yelled afterward. And two huge guys emerged from literally nowhere. Their expressions and the way they talked were clear threats as they told me I couldn't leave without drinking my coffee inside the shop. I realized I was the only customer inside at that point, so I started screaming at the workers, trying to get the attention of people walking by. At one point, one of the two males tried to cover my mouth with his hand, but then retreated as people started flocking around the area. Taking advantage of that, I opened the door and escaped the shop, questioning the sanity of everyone working there. However, I still took the coffee with me, determined to find out what was so special about that drink. As I headed back home, I took the coffee to a laboratory and asked if they could find anything unusual. And just as I thought, the results came to shock me even more. According to the lab tech, the coffee contained a very high concentration of fentanyl, a very strong anesthetic that with the dose present in that coffee was very probably enough to get me killed. I reported everything to the authorities, but no one was ever charged for anything, leaving me with unanswered questions. Why did they try to kill me that day?